Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. I have a returning guest. It's Mr. Rob Williams. Good to see you again, brother.
How you doing, Andrew?
Oh, I don't know why I was doing that fist bump. That was a bit weird, but it was.
I'll do it back.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, mate.
Just up here somewhere.
Yeah, I'll give it some Jack Kirby force perspective. There we go. And his friend and colleague Pye Parr. Am I saying your name right, mate?
Yeah, that's right. No, there's no strange pronunciations or anything.
Where did that come from? Is it a self-awarded name, or were you christened with it?
No. It's the story is not particularly interesting, so I'm not going to go into it because it's not a very good anecdote. But it's a school nickname basically that's stuck, and I ended up using professionally.
All right, I love it. I love that. That's amazing. So, so you guys are here with me today on Forbidden Planet TV to talk about your new image book, which is a wild piece of work, Petrol Head. So guys, what can you tell me about it?
It's a post-apocalyptic story about a drag racing robot who kind of has gone obsolete. The petrol heads were a race of robots built to sort of smash into each other and blow up and catch fire, and for the entertainment of everyone. And then along the way, basically, new technology came along. The petrol heads got put off in their own part of this futuristic city where they're not allowed to leave from. And then one day, a scientist and his daughter, Lupa, hide out in Petrol Head's garage, and the police are after them because they just might have a way to save the entire human race in their backpack. And Petrol Head is the archetype of the old heavyweight boxer. He's not going back in the ring, and then he's forced to do what he does best, which is drive. And from that point on, it's a post-apocalyptic road movie. It's Mad Max meets Judge Dredd, I guess.
Fantastic. No finer project for two of 2000 AD's finest, of course, to be working on together. I mean, what was the genesis of it all for you guys? First of all, actually, Pye, how long have you known Rob for?
15 years-ish, I suppose. No, probably maybe more than that. I don't know. We've not worked together before, but obviously I know him from just being at conventions, working at 2000. You know, I used to be the graphic designer for 2000, so yeah. I meet all the guys who work on it and get drunk with them, and then they stay in bed and I have to work the conventions.
I know exactly how that feels. I know exactly. Moment for moment, beat for beat. I know how that feels, mate.
No, it's funny. I found an old. It's a New York Comic Con at the moment when we're talking, but I found an old photo from New York Comic Con, and it's like, Pye, there's you and Matt in a bar.
Oh God,
when that was. But
I know. I don't know what year it was, but I know exactly when you're talking about, because it was a free bar.
Yes.
And I got onto the fact that I was the only person tipping the barman, and I got absolutely paralytic to the point where I couldn't talk, and Matt had to take me home.
Good quality convention experience.
Absolutely right. I really wish I didn't know exactly word for word what you were talking about, but of course I and actually, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this and embarrass him now. But yeah, one of my favorite 2000 AD booth stories involves the one and only Michael Mulcher, who once foolishly came over to the Titan booth, and for some reason, because he had a conflict, asked myself and Uncle Steve White to look after the 2000 AD booth, which is a story that ended in massive tears for Mulcher, but tears of laughter for me and Steve White. So there you go. Ask him that story the next time you see him.
Yeah, we'll get him in trouble. He's still employed.
Yeah, I know. He hates the story as well. So if you're watching, Mike. Sorry, carry on.
I'm gonna text him afterwards and find out the actual details of that.
Oh yeah. He'll be happy to share it with you.
But we always have to do stuff like that. I remember we did San Diego once, and it was only me and Keith, and he disappeared off. He said he was going for a meeting and disappeared for about 3 hours. So I was busting for a wee, and I ended up asking John Higgins to look after the stand because he's the only person I could see who I knew, and just so I could go to the toilet.
The colorist and watchman will be taking your.
You won't be taking your orders. Yeah, he's another bloke I like a lot, actually, Keith Richardson, doing some fine work at the moment. But let's arc this back to Petrol Head. What was the genesis of you guys working together on this project?
Well, I'd sort of I like drawing cars basically, so I kind of during lockdown I'd started doing a load of Car posters just off my own back, things I wanted to draw because I was absolutely sick of everything I was working on. I thought I'm going to have to be proactive in finding a job that interests me more. So I started my own project, did a little bit of drawing, and then Rob saw them and said, "Oh, these, have you thought about turning these into a comic? They're kind of, they're quite good." So, and we went from there.
Yeah, they just kind of, they were futuristic sort of robot racing drivers with futuristic cars. And it wasn't just that, it was the colors. Like, the colors are such a big part of Pye's work and part of Petrol Head and why it works. It really pops. It just had a bright, kind of optimistic, sort of fun, hopeful kind of feel to it. It was like, it was halfway there, basically. It just needed someone like me, to come along and go, well, how do we build a story around this, And then Pye and I got talking, and then we built the characters together and built the world. But it's really me sort of seeing sort of Pye's work online and realizing how good it was, and going, this should be a book in its own right.
I mean, Pye, I think it's beautiful the fact that you got the chance to do it, and it must be a great feeling after being a leading graphic designer and having been within the firmament of 2000 AD, designing and whatnot, but to be on the other side of that creative table and to be actually, to be the artist, that must feel great.
Oh no, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how do I describe that? Yeah, it's like I always wanted to be an artist, and I remember at school our careers advisor said, "No, you can't do that. You want to be a graphic designer." So I resisted that for years, and then ended up becoming a graphic designer anyway, and finding I quite liked it, and so I got stuck doing that for a while. So it's nice to kind of get back to actually doing what I always wanted to do. And and also it's kind of. I can't think of the word, but yeah, it's not. It's nice to sort of have the approval of someone else. Yes, you are good at this. It feels like a break.
It's also, you had a better careers advisor than we did in our school, because I went in. She said, "What do you want to do when you leave school?" And I said, "I want to be a journalist." And she went, "Have you thought about working in the local factory?" And then basically all my mates came out and said, "What did she tell you?" She told us all to work down the local factory. So basically,
took her t-shirt off when she got home, and it's like,
I think she'd been flipped a tenner. Basically, was what it was. Anyway, but going back to Pet.
When she got to meet her partner, the local factory owner.
Yes, sure, definitely. Yeah, she wasn't the best career advisor in the world. But no, I mean, the thing is, one of the things with Pye being so good at this, and he's brilliant at being a designer, and so the book looks beautiful in terms of how it's designed. So that was like, he's a triple threat in that regard. But also, I mean, it's the fact that we wanted to do it through Image because we wanted to own this ourselves, and for good or ill, it's 100% us, basically.
Owning your own stuff has got to be where it's at, and as much as we're all, as most creators I meet are all fans like I am, and it's great to work on the things you grew up reading and loving. You want to create your own stuff, don't you, and have it out there. And
yeah, I always find I prefer drawing stuff that hasn't already had someone's sort of footsteps all over it, if you know what I mean. You haven't got to live up to that. I don't think I'd want to draw Dredd, for example. I just wouldn't. The sort of weight of all the sort of previous stuff that's gone before is too much. I find it quite difficult to get around that.
I remember saying to Duncan Fagredo once, he did a sketch, I think, of Batman. It was amazing because everything Duncan draws is amazing. I said, "You never done a Batman book?" And he said, he goes, all the work has gone before. What could I add to it? And I thought, oh God, don't pull that thread. Otherwise, none of us will get out of bed in the morning. if every time I sit down to write Judge Dredd or something, I'm thinking, there was some good stories beforehand. It's like, no.
You can't think of the iceberg under the waves, the eternal iceberg. You can't think of that. No. I think it's a good point. And what does your work get that incredible vibrancy of color from? What is it inside you how have you developed that? Because it as Rob said, it's something that's really special about what you do.
Oh, thank you. I don't know. It's I suppose it's quite design driven. Like if you're sort of working on a poster that's like pure type or graphics, the color becomes much more important than if you're doing something that's very detailed. Like if you're drawing, for example, a black and white image, if you're doing such a good job of the line work. It almost doesn't, the color is secondary. Whereas if you're working on design stuff, the color is everything, because that's the thing that makes it interesting. So I think there's a melding of this kind of style of limited color poster design with sort of very graphic black and white line work. Yeah. And I mean, I deliberately wanted to make it all false color as well, just because it makes it a bit easier to color. If you make everything the color it is, it's kind of boring to look at. Or I didn't want to be stuck with that. You know, if something needed to be dramatic, I'll just make it red. You know, I don't need, and if that looks a bit incongruous if everything is then colored naturally. But if the whole book's like that, then it kind of it helps the storytelling.
Yeah, and I think it just gives it. I mean, even though it's funny when we were asked to sort of do hashtags to describe a book by image when we were soliciting it, it's like dystopian and stuff. And you go, oh God, even saying that word makes me kind of cringe and think it's going to be like sort of more, you know, really kind of like oppressive and morbid. But this is a really, it's a really fun book. It's funny, and it's, you know, it sort of pops, you know, the colors pop, the action pops, you know, it's kind of, we wanted it to be a book for all ages as well, you know, that anyone can read potentially. It kind of feels like it's a little bit like a Pixar movie on the page to me, anyway.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you about that, because there were a couple of things when I've read the pages that I've read that really kind of leapt out at me, all sort of jammed together in a blender at the same time. And to me, it felt like a glorious amalgam of very early, concept-wise, very early 2000 AD, like it's something that concept-wise that you might see in the first 100 issues of 2000 AD, when it's less of a kind of Dredd monolith, and there's all kinds, there's Harlem Heroes, there's all kinds of things, Inferno, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
there's definitely a bit of future sports going on, isn't there?
Yeah, yes. A bit of future sports for sure. And then at the same time, there's a bit of Pixar and Lightning McQueen and all that going on. But it also had a huge dollop of like Speed Buggy in it for me. Yeah, which is the older Hanna-Barbera show where Speed Buggy is voiced by Mel Blanc, you know, the voice of all the Warner Brothers characters, and you know, and he's a June Buggy with a personality, you know, and they often had these kind of like anthropomorphized like vehicles in Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I got a sense of all of that at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like wacky races is one thing. When I was writing the petrol head, so you see a flashback in issue 1, this great all action sequence, which is like the petrol heads at their height, and yeah, it's like all the different petrol heads are a race of robots. They've all been designed to appeal to a certain demographic, to have their own toys, and so the population can buy them and everything. So yeah, it did feel like it could easily be a wacky races cartoon, you know. And then there's a bit of ABC Warriors in there probably. Yeah. There's a bit of Dredd, there's a bit of Akira. There's you know, it's just you stick all your favorite stuff into a blender and something good comes out, hopefully.
Yeah, and I can see how, very particularly, how you'd want to keep this one for yourselves and publish it with Image. That makes a lot of sense to me. How many issues is it, guys?
5. Yeah, so it's 5 issues, but the first one's double length, so it's 42 pages.
Nice, yeah.
And I mean, the intention is to do more. I mean, it's 5 gets us to the end of the first arc, and that's a trade. And then, you know, the realities of the business will mean we will see, but we have every intention, as long as it sells well enough, we'll keep on doing more. There's very much not a finite ending at 5. Yeah. We're just getting to, in computer games term, the end of a level at that point, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's particularly what I wanted to ask you about, is whether you've got more gas in the tank, to coin a phrase. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's totally. I mean, it's without giving too much away. I mean, one thing we talked about this before, but just like the cast expands every issue as well. By the end of it, it's just that we've got a little ensemble, which is and what you do is, I think when a book's working, every time you introduce a new character and you like them so much, you want them to hang around. You feel like you're on a winner. You know, there's a good energy about it, and also there's little as a writer, you put in little lines, like there's one line in it which is just a bit of sort of exposition, of which there's not much in the book, where it says, like, we see our futuristic city and it's the ozone, and it says underneath, one of the 6 domed cities containing what's left of humanity. And just a line like that, actually, you've got all kind. I just went, that's at least 6 more graphic novels. Do you know what I mean? Should we get that far? So it just feels like the world builds as the series progresses, and it's there's a lot more stories to tell.
Yeah, it's
we go on. Yeah, we keep getting asked about things that we haven't really thought about as well. You know, like what happens with this, and we're like, oh, I don't know, I haven't really considered that. You know, like the lives of the humans who live in this place isn't really touched on. You know, and like, I don't know, maybe Rob has thought about it. There obviously you do think about sort of certain parts of your world building, but not everything, and there's all that to explore.
And to me, that feels like a gift, to be in at the ground level of this world you've created, but actually to have so many things you can explore, to the point where when people come up and ask you questions like that, you're like, oh man, yeah, that's a good point. You know what I mean? That's kind of a gift creatively, right?
Well, I mean, I think one thing you learn is you don't want to go in too big early on. A story needs to be contained to have its own natural dramatic energy. You know, you're going from point A to point B. No one's expecting you to go, and here's all the other points as well at the same time. But you do. I've found this over the years with like writing Judge Dredd. You'll hang a little plot thread out there, and sometimes you don't know where that's going, but you go, oh, that's kind of a cool little thread, and that leads to an entirely new. Then you build on that, and you build an entirely new story out of that, and it's just. I'm kind of envious of people like. I did a book with Mike Mignola a couple of years ago, and talking to him on a couple of Zooms, he really did feel like he had his entire world mapped out basically, and he knew it all, which is amazing. I think I can't speak for Pye, but with me, it's kind of, certain things, and other things you go, oh, it'd be quite cool to find out. But
then it'd be interesting to find out whether, like, is that because he's done so much of it that he's kind of worked it out as he's gone, or did he have it all there beforehand? You know?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm sure. Like, everyone's human. You know, unless you, I don't know, different brains work in different ways, I guess. But I think a lot of it is. I'm a big believer. Like, people expect writers to know every aspect of a story, and no, half the time we're making it up as we go as well. That's the whole basis of writing, is you're making things up. You know what I mean? So, some things you have set down, and you go, right, I know we're going there, but sometimes you don't know how you're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes you end up in a cul-de-sac, right? And I can think of loads of different examples. One would be like the original version of The Hobbit, where when he meets Gollum, all the dialogue's different because Tolkien's not expecting it to go where it ultimately went, right? Yeah. And in Dredd, there's all the early weird, censored, disfigured face stuff, all of that, right?
Yeah, like cops, like still a police force and things like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, just things progress as they, sometimes, and sometimes you go, well, that's a bad idea. Let's ignore that. We didn't do that. Yeah, no one's ever, I think, gone anywhere near the cops who work with the judges, have they? I think we've never seen that again.
No, right on. Yeah, and that was a real thing. Also, while we're mentioning Dredd, Rob, I've got to tell you, I think you're totally on fire with your Dredd stories at the moment, mate.
Oh, thank you. Cheers.
I think they're very, very close to, like, in my humble opinion, career best material. So I love the Hershey story. I love Poison. I think it's a great read, mate. I'm really.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Poison was, like, for people who don't know, is like Judge Hershey was a long-standing backing character for Judge Dredd for many years, and then me and Simon Fraser did four series of her doing her long walk, basically, and it just recently ended a couple of weeks back, and the ending was quite emotional. So for us and for other people, it seems. So yeah, thanks. It's nice to hear, Andrew. Cheers.
I mean every word of it, and anybody watching this can check out the links and find those issues of 2000 AD. And Poison, which is kind of like your follow-up stories, on sale at the moment in the Progues right at the moment, right, mate? Yeah,
it's just, we're on this week. Episode 3 came out in Prague. It started in 2000 AD, Prague 2351, and we're now on episode 3. And it's a murder mystery with Judge Dredd a bit of a road movie through Judge Dredd's world, trying to track down who actually murdered Judge Hershey. There you go. That's the latest.
There we go.
With a very nice cover by Alex Rowland, I think.
Very nice piece of work.
Right.
Yeah, very nice piece of work. And yeah, well done, mate, because it's great stuff. And to both of you, I think what you've done with the debut issue of Petrol Head, it's a really I would like to use the word, I think, incandescent piece of work, you know. And it just jams together all those glorious influences, but it works beautifully. And it has got that kind of day glow propulsivity to it, which is, I think one of the great things about it, for me as a fan, is it's not really like anything else that's out there at the moment. It really sits in its own unique space. So, you know, well played to both of you. Because I think that's a difficult trick to pull off, particularly in today's saturated market. Seem to be using all of these metaphors for vivid colours today, but in today's saturated market, you know, it's difficult to do that. But I really think you have done it, and it's a great piece of work, lads.
Oh, thank you.
And by the way, oh, it's my pleasure. And on that sterling testimonial, issue 1 is available for pre-order from the links attached to our conversation. Right down here.
We do that.
Right down here on YouTube. Okay. See? So we thought it all through beforehand. Thought it all through. Pye, it's a pleasure to meet you, mate. I'm really enjoying your work. Yeah. And very nice to meet you. And Rob, it's always a pleasure to have you on, brother.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Cheers for having us, man. And yeah, and I hope people like Petrol Head, because we put a lot of love into it.
Right on, mate. Well said. All the very best, lads. I'll see you soon. Take care.
See you later.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.